welcome back to Women Making Moves, where we celebrate the moves that women are making. My name is Amy Pons, founder of Unlock the Magic, coaching, healing, and facilitator of Magic School. I'm joined today with Emily Kapszukiewicz.
Hi.
Emily is the CEO and founder of Squirrel Space, a nonprofit designed to raise awareness, allyship, and advocacy for the neurodivergent community, the CEO of Owl Therapy, a mental health and wellness startup company, and the CEO of KAPS Consulting, a transformation consulting and coaching company, and is now a certified coach specializing in leadership and personal and organizational transformation. Examples of current and past consulting clients are Centra Health, JP Morgan, Adobe, Legacy Health, and more. She's over 15 years of strategy, innovation, and consumer insights experience and is passionate about leadership, coaching, and mental wellness. Her expertise is identifying growth using human-centered design, financial analysis, unstructured problem solving, data analysis, and qualitative and quantitative consumer research. After 7 years growing 2 consumer brands worth over $1 million in sales, she took a leap and worked as a director of strategy in financial services and insurance and was quickly promoted to senior director, where she merged strategy with consumer research and brought her success and experience to the healthcare industry, where consumer experience and innovation is still a new discipline. Emily lives in Portland, Oregon with her partner Alex and 3 cats, Zelda, Otis, and Yoko. She enjoys hiking, reading, jogging, playing with her cats, paddleboarding, and pottery. Emily, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you do a few things.
A little bit.
It's this thing where I often talk about how bios are sometimes the hardest thing for me anymore because I'm not just like one thing. I'm not like Amy that works as this at this company. It's a lot. So even like adding in coaching, healing, and magic school, that feels like a lot. So all of your amazing accomplishments, you do a few things.
Yeah, I'd say so. It probably matches, the vibe of Squirrel Space, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's a little nutty sometimes, but it works.
Is Squirrel Space based on the like squirrel? Like,
Yeah. It's meant to really represent kind of what it feels like in my head. And, having ADHD is I often feel like I'm running around gathering all these nuts, leaving some behind. But at the end of the day, the acorns, they go where they need to. So yeah, it is supposed to be like
oh,
squirrel this, squirrel that. Like,
yeah. I mean, I have not been diagnosed as ADHD, but I have that mentality. And like I'm about to go on a WLK. I can't say it out loud because they'll know what it is.
yeah.
My pups in a little bit. And I'm just literally, I count all the animals we see and I say hello and I just greet nature as on the walk. It's beautiful.
Yeah. A lot of it, was inspired by being in Portland and just being very outdoorsy and just really embracing just being different. And yeah, I totally hear what you're saying.
Isn't Portland supposed to be crazy right now?
People say that, but it's looking really beautiful. It's not really like a war-torn city. It's a really peaceful area, and that's really what made me feel very comfortable and confident. Just celebrating being different is that Portland's also not afraid of that, and yeah, it's not as war-torn as maybe it might look. You can't believe everything you hear on the news.
I would say the same in Chicago. That's where I'm at. So we're kindred that way. Everything's fine here.
Yeah, it's all fine.
So, okay, you do all the things. What I find kindred with you too is that I was also in financial services the past 10 years of my 20-year corporate career. And oh gosh, I kind of I don't know if there was this sense, I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur or like go out into the wild on my own. And I'm not ever suggesting that I won't ever go back. Like who knows? Who says I won't? But it really is, I feel we're in this time of systemic change. And I'll leave it right there for the moment. And we're at a fever pitch of humanity where we're entering in this new paradigm of leadership. And I'm an elder millennial. I got to the point in my corporate career where I'm like, oh, I was a leader. I was a people leader, but not in the way that everybody wanted me to be. And I
hmm
was constantly getting pulled into like closed door meetings about how I needed to be less than, less mama bear, less this, less that. And I was like, no, no, I actually wear it as a badge of honor that my team knew that I would run through walls for them. And no matter what, I had their back. I was like, great, perfect. I share this because as I read your bio and I see these like really big names, I wouldn't necessarily equate those with being the most open toward this new paradigm of leadership. How do you navigate through that? Or like, what does that look like for you?
I don't think I navigated it very well, to be honest. that's kind of how I ended up, founding Squirrel Space. Is, I really felt like I got banged up a lot by the corporate world. And I do think I agree with you. We're in a time of great change. And a big part of Squirrel Space is not what we do, but how we do it. And it's about community building. And that's been my leadership style. And I think I'm pretty unapologetic about it. I'm a pretty blunt person. For being a pretty squirrely person, I can hyper focus on things,
Yeah.
and thing that I try not to compromise on, is my integrity and my ability to actually be able to feel restful at night. And something that grinds me up inside is putting profits over people, and in, the kind of the rat race of the corporate grind. And I got tired of it. And so I don't think I've navigated it necessarily gracefully, but it's been about standing back up. And I think if there's one message that I'm carrying, it's about recovery is hard, and you have to choose how you want to heal. And when you are recovered and when you are doing well, it's easy to do well. It's not easy to recover. And there's something important about who you surround yourself with and what you state as your values, and what you pull from the inside to keep you going. And I've had to do that a lot. I've been fired for asking for reasonable accommodations. I got fired when I was in the hospital when I was on FMLA and disability. And after I found out that I had been overprescribed ADHD medication for 20 years, and I was angry, but that's what got me into healthcare. And I've let the things that pull on my heartstrings and that speak to something deeper and more purposeful kind of be my guiding force. And I've let a lot of the voice of corporate go, because I got pulled into meetings. I got the don't talk about diversity here. Like I've gotten all the things, and excuse me, but it was just like F off. I'm done. And so
Literally.
yeah, literally.
I got
That's
pulled into the C-suite more often than I can count because I was also the women's employee resource group leader, and
oh,
I was actually in corporate when this is before Roe v. Wade was overturned, but it was Texas had made a state law. Well, the company I was in actually had employees in Texas, so I started being concerned for the women in my employee resource group that are down in Texas. It's like, do we caravan? Like, do we get them out of state? Like, what do they need? Like, what? And ooh, I was always asking for forgiveness, not permission. And that one was, I got my hand slapped pretty hard for that and almost got my leadership status away. But anyway, I made it through and I ended up leaving anyway. But I'm again proud of that because it's like, cool. And had I been fired for that, I've been like, that's amazing. I would have been so proud of myself. You touch on, oh gosh, perimenopause brain. One second.
all good.
Um,
Don't let the silence scare you. It's all good.
oh no. Oh, yeah, I call it someone's okayness at the end of the day when they've maybe eaten something for dinner and they're resting or relaxing for the evening or heading into their evening routine, whatever that looks like. I posted about this the other day. It's like, how does your heart feel? And how does your stomach feel? How does your head feel? How does your body feel after dinner when you're trying to settle in for the night? And then also when you're trying to go to sleep, how do you feel? And I feel that so many people right now are in this state of beholdenness where it's like, yeah, I feel like crap and I couldn't possibly do anything differently. And that's where as a coach, I'm like, energy is everything. Everything,
Energy.
everything's energy, energy, everything. So if you're aware of that and you keep ignoring it, your body's actually going to show you in different ways. Like for instance, at the end of my corporate reign, my body sat me down. I literally had to have surgery. I was in the hospital. So I'm not suggesting that everyone do what I did, which was today's my last day. And 3 years later, I have my own business. I'm saying by any degree, could you lean into what your body is trying to tell you so that you don't get flatlined? And that's
Hmm.
sometimes hard when you bring up recovery. It's hard to, and let me ask you, how does someone that feels so beholden, which is like, well, I got to do this to put food on the table or take care of my bills or my family, how do they take care of themselves? How do they start choosing them first so that they actually can choose the things and the people and the stuff that they care about in life?
Yeah, I think that's a really intriguing question. And I've been thinking about this a lot because something I've realized is I have a gift for advocacy. And it's taken me a while to understand that that's not everyone's gift, because sometimes it would frustrate me when I'm like, well, why don't you speak up? And what I realize is everyone has such a different way of coming to comfort. And I think a lot of it is just giving yourself permission to be happy, and also giving yourself permission to be completely freaked out.
Oh,
And
That
that's
part.
something, yeah, that I've learned, because I started transitioning myself mentally and emotionally out of corporate 3.5 years ago. It's when we moved to Portland, and I had just gotten out of the hospital. I had hospital bills. I was, going through withdrawal. I was being very aggressively treated by my employer that, I was on FMLA disability, and they're like, you're done. And I was like, okay. And it was terrifying. And something like that, very similar, happened to me not so long ago. I ended up in the hospital again about a month ago. I was trying to get care, and I ended up getting arrested for seeking care in a hospital. And so I lost my patient rights for 13 days and felt alone and scared. And, the last month and a half for me has been challenging because a lot of it, my brain has told me I should go back to corporate, and all these worries came out. And a couple things to answer your question that have helped me kind of turn the corner. And it's been like the last week, and I've noticed like this week I've been very emotional, is one, being okay, not being okay. Giving yourself permission to cry. Like I cry spontaneously when I'm kind of in recovery, and sometimes I've been in meetings and I've just had to take a step back and say, hey, I'm having a really strong emotional reaction. Don't know why that is. And but a lot of people, we're taught it's not okay to express emotion in the workplace, but because I'm sort of my own boss, I get to tell myself I can cry if I want to. And if you don't like looking, like end the Zoom meeting, I'm just gonna cry alone. I don't care.
That's not yours to manage. And
Yeah,
how incredible, Emily, you are creating the psychological safety for yourself first so that everybody around you feels that safety. Imagine that's the new paradigm of leadership that we are creating in our own businesses and that is
yeah.
rippling out into the collective. I'm so sorry to hear that happened to you. One of the things
Thanks.
that I've been fascinated about recently is you're in healthcare, you know this, but for those who don't know, women's anatomy and bodies weren't in medical research until 1993, and we're just kind of newly learning that women have been misdiagnosed and also misdosed with
Correct.
medication for
That's right.
all of time. And we're just now learning about this. I know you could speak to this better than I could, but holy shit.
Yeah. It's a crisis. And especially with mental health, doctors are really trained to prescribe. They're really not trained in therapy and in, mindset shifting and in positive intelligence. In my experience being in the hospital was very much about getting pills, getting out, and not about healing. And women for sure have been at the receiving end of that, especially like in the neurodivergent community. The way that they actually designed psych testing instruments was very biased towards men. And the symptoms of ADHD present very differently in teenage boys than they do girls. And so many women my age and older, 50s, 60s, have just found out that they have ADHD and are kind of grappling with what that means. And the same thing is true for, autism diagnoses. And I also think there's a lot with hormones. You mentioned perimenopause, and it's something that, has been a very closeted thing that, we're supposed to be ashamed of. But I'm convinced that my cycle has so much effect, even though I'm on birth control, like on my mental state, and there is an interaction with my mental health, and it changes over life. And, I think that's where people need to lean on people. And right now, a lot of the hospitals, and there's a lot of chaos going on in the country and in healthcare, but it's lost some of that humanity. We need to listen to our bodies, and we need to realize that people are different and we want something different for our lives and our wellness. And I think that there is something very important that women have to share, and especially people of color who also have been told that they're doing it wrong. There's not a doing it wrong. It's a lifestyle choice. And now healthcare has started to research lifestyle medicine like it's novel. They've just discovered that being near trees and water lowers cortisol levels, which to me is a no-brainer. But there's a
That,
lot about being, sorry, a
no,
woman and
no.
being in tune with your body and your intuition, that it gives you so much more truth and knowledge about healing and togetherness and connection than a lot of, traditional medicine would ever show you. So I agree with you. I'm feeling it.
Emily, Emily. I feel seen right now. I feel like you get it. I feel like you're speaking such truth and wisdom and things that women have always known. I call it the new human energy. The new human energy is understanding what our ancestors knew. And
Hmm.
people from my old world are like, you're an energy healer now? Like, how'd you do that? Or how'd you become that? I'm like, well, I always was that. I was just masquerading as a corporate executive. 'Cause
Hmm.
from when I was a kid, I'm clairsentient. I feel energy. I can feel what you feel. And then I also get pings of knowing where you're trying to go. So that's actually how I'm coaching. That's how I coach. But I also offer healings for energetics when I can feel the energy stuck and we move it. And we move the stagnant energy. And to your point, nature is the ultimate playbook. I
Hmm.
created Magic School, and it's all about bringing elements of nature back into your daily world so you can trust your intuition again. That's what my Magic School is about. And so that's why everything that you just said, it was like, yes. How do we get that? How do we get that on a billboard? Not even,
Yeah.
how do we put what you just said on the main stage? And again, not suggesting that men or non-binary people cannot access this, and innately this energy of intuition, that's actually at the core of the feminine energy, but again, new human energy, which I call it, because anybody can access it if they allow themselves to. And when you talk about cycles, again, everything that you're talking about, I can't with you in like an amazing way. Like, you're amazing. I host a womb circle where each of us come in each week and say, here's the day of my cycle that I'm on. Here's how I'm feeling toward myself, toward the world, toward my partner, toward my kids, toward my pets. And we just get to explore that. And to your point, it changes for each of us every month. Like, my cycle days I'm going to feel differently each time. And it's giving each other, I meet women who are postmenopause and they're like, I wish I would have had that back in, when I was going through that. And I'm like, you still can, because every woman, even postmenopause, has that cycle by the new moon anyway. But we have those cycles, we have those rhythms, we have that inner knowing. And when you stop to consider that, and I'll take the old school. The old school divine masculine, divine feminine feels limiting to me, that you have to be one or the other. So, and the old school element of that was that the masculine gives structure to the beautiful creation of the feminine, those working together. And so I bring that up because this is why I feel, again, women are creating the new paradigm,
Hmm.
and the wounded or imbalanced masculine from old is getting very pinched and uncomfortable. And of course, that's going to get
Hmm.
louder as we create the new. So I'll pause to let you. I just wanted to, like, all the amazing gems that you spoke. I'm like, oh, yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is about, I feel like the balance of the universe has like shifted and we're just not on right now. And there is, you touched so well on it, but there's an old wisdom and truth and then a feminine energy that is missing. And I've noticed, especially since COVID, like the pace of technology and especially with AI seems to be really pushing the feminine energy out. And one thing I've been focused on, and it's interesting you talk about energy, is for the last year, I have been very focused on energy management and have taken this ELI assessment with someone who's a coach and a psychologist, and have really learned about my energy patterns. And I've started to understand when I move to different anabolic states and like what kind of energy there is. And now I've started to learn how I can intentionally shift my energy and what energy is serves me. And sometimes my anger does help. Sometimes I need that rage to fuel me, and sometimes I need the tenderness. But it's about being versatile and being aware of what is called for in a moment. And I don't think there's that intelligence in our society right now. We're moving so fast and things are so much about cost and labor. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about that right now. I
No.
want to talk about community and connection and compassion. And speaking of cycles, I have started to think that I am starting to move in 4 year cycles of my personal growth. And, if I chart my thought patterns, my energy, my ability to mentally move from a negative to a positive, like I said, I just got out of a psychiatric hospital that I was forcibly put in for 13 days. 13 days is a long hospital stay,
Mhm.
and I was in there in a state that does not allow for any court hearing. And so I was basically just a lab rat. And I came out and it was it was tough. But what I'm grateful for is that I know that I'm in a much different place than I was 4 years ago. I've learned so much, I've grown so much, but I've really invested in being present and knowing what's coming up in my
Mhm.
body and how am I growing and changing, and kind of pulling back to what you had said before about being afraid of like, hey, I need to put the food on the table. I need to do this. I need to do that. And I have learned to really sit with discomfort, to
Yeah.
really sit with some pretty icky emotions and just to be pretty unapologetic about letting my emotions out in healthy ways. Like if I want to cry here on the podcast, I'll cry on the podcast. If I want
Right.
to cry out in a public space, I'm going to cry in a public space. And I'm not going to feel bad about it because it's what my body needs to release that negative energy into. I think tears are kind of healing, and I certainly feel better after I've blown my nose, of course. But there is something very much about feminine energy, masculine energy, and being intentional about where you want your headspace to be. And I think the last thing I'd say is there's something very special about, I think, the coaching community and also a community that is focused on being very authentic and genuine is I think people tend to find each other
Mhm.
because you're not hiding something. There's no mask. And so that to me is one of the superpowers that I try to tap into related to energy is, when you're sensitive to energy and you can pick up on it, you can tell who you want to be gravitating toward and if it's going to be a positive energy or something that's draining you. And so there is something very very powerful about what I hear you saying, and my experience has been very much the same way, and really feeling like I'm at the beginning of a new 4 year cycle, and I'm excited for it. I'm gonna be doing some stuff.
I want to see your birth chart, is what I'm keep. I was like, I want to look at your birth chart. You're absolutely spot on. We do have cycles of growth and they do show up in our birth charts. And so my next big one, I think, is next year. So I think that's interesting, which would be my 4 years because
Okay.
the last big growth cycle I had was when I said, today's my last day and I didn't have a
Yeah.
plan. And, I love what you're saying about sitting in the discomfort. So for instance, I don't have any idea where my income is coming from this month. None. I have no idea.
Either.
And and I feel the best I've ever felt in my entire life because every day I know and I trust myself so much and the path and the soul's mission that I have found. I know that every single moment that I'm existing, I'm always creating new pathways and it's coming. And I
Hmm.
trust that. And I also trust that I'm going to have enough, meaning it's not about like I think back in my corporate days or in my 20s, I'm like, I'm gonna make $1 million and I'm gonna have 6 houses. And that's just not as important to me, the stuff. It's more important for me to feel like how do I feel today? And
Hmm.
I think last week I was telling my husband, I was like, I had the most beautiful day. I had the most amazing day. And he didn't jump to, oh, how much did you make?
Hmm.
What was amazing about it? What was beautiful about it? And I had had the most amazing conversations all day just with different women that I've reached out to on LinkedIn, like yourself, or on my podcast, and just connecting. And
Hmm.
it's that inner knowing that you're creating.
Yeah.
And everything gets to be a part of that. I trust that through my creation, I will always have enough to take care of myself and my family. And I
Hmm.
don't have to know right now in this moment how, when, where, and I just trust it. And I know that a lot of people can't do. I know how hard that is. Believe me, it took me years. It still takes me years sometimes. When I'm in my luteal phase, ooh, my luteal phase of my cycle, I'm like, nothing's coming, everything's bad. Let me go get, yeah. And I'm like, how you felt, where I'm just like, should I start rage applying for corporate? Like, should I go back? I don't know. And it all
Oh
gets
my
to be true.
God. You are speaking my language. I was just talking to someone the other day about we will manifest this. It's about what you're putting out in the universe. And I went to a recovery conference last week, and my partner was so nervous about me flying back to Chicago. But it reminded me of the first time I was hospitalized, within 2 weeks after getting out of the psych ward. I had my husband drive me back, and I walked around outside and I saw, where I had been on the inside before. And there was something very healing about it. And so going back to Chicago and knowing I am safe, I am whole, I am putting different energy into the universe. I'm a different person than I was a month ago. And at that recovery conference, I got to tell my story. I'm not a recovering addict, but they still created space for me. And there was something really beautiful when I understood that these are communities that are connected, and there is something very important about just putting that energy out into the universe. And I met so many wonderful people at that conference, and it really felt personal to me because it was when I started kind of embracing that I am still recovering. Like, I don't think I was ready to say that until, I felt just very emotional and how much the other people's stories resonated with me. I've not been in state or federal prison. I've never, blown coke. Like, there's lots of things that they've done that I haven't done, but I know what it feels like to feel desperately lost. I know what it feels like to look around and not see a friend that makes you feel safe. I know what the feeling of loneliness is, but I also know the feeling of gratitude and of self-forgiveness. And what I've learned from all of their stories and through my own is that when you put energy out into the world, this real expression of who you are, you do manifest your own future, and you put something out there and people could pick it up or they might leave it. And that's okay, but that to me is something that I've really started to embrace, is that you do in a lot of ways control your own destiny. If I don't put out energy, how will I find my people?
Mm-hmm.
If I live in fear of all these things, I won't make a move. And the world always changes. Resisting change doesn't serve me well. Thinking about how I want to be with change serves me very well. And I want to ride the waves of uncertainty. I'm going to surf them. And what I love about that, not only metaphorically, but what I love about it, like in reality, is remembering that we're all, at the end of the day, pretty small. And checking my ego like that and just saying, I need to do what's healthy and right for me and let go of what anyone else thinks. Because if I care that much, I'll never get up on the surfboard.
Right.
I'll never try. And when you're surfing, like when I think about the times that I've been able to successfully kind of pop up, it's been when I'm not overthinking it and just willing myself to ride the wave and sort of throwing your trust into the universe and just letting go. And it's that feeling of when you finally kind of feel the inertia of your energy and your effort, and when you've struck gold, even when you kind of I'm like you, I don't know where my paycheck's coming from, but I'm very convinced that the times where I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I should probably go back to corporate and rage apply. And sometimes I do it. Sometimes I allow myself the moment
Totally.
of applying. And I look back in the day later, I'm like, I got a rejection letter. I didn't want it anyways. That's just fine.
I
And it
know
reminds
I get those and I'm like, oh, I forgot I did that. Like, I don't even care. But the part of our brains that wants to keep us safe was like appeased in that moment when we did the
it
race.
was.
It was like, okay, fine. So,
Yeah, it's like, you did it. Okay, let go
okay,
now.
okay. And remember, you're a business owner. Oh, right. Okay, okay. Got it. Got it. So it's allowing, and this is why I love coaching and healing as well, is because I literally show people and walk them through in their own energy field how to meet life and respond to it and not have that fear, scarcity, lack reaction that we've only been taught that way, that life happens to us. And it's
Hmm.
it's it's to your point, we're in this time and space where there's this cosmic awakening happening where like all of our DNA is getting upgraded at the cellular level, whether we realize it or not. And for those of us who have been like, awake for a little bit, we're like, oh yeah, all this is fine. But like it's very, I absolutely understand where people that need to have a control and have to have things in a structure or order. And again, that's more of the masculine energy of what we've been skewed in. I mean, all of our lifetimes.
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
It's all we know. So imagine when this new flow, creation, trusting, balance, and Emily, that power, that inertia that you were talking about from inside first,
Hmm.
we know how powerful that is. And imagine the old systems needing for people to rely on them, they don't want us to find that, our own inertia, our own well-being, and that's where the systems are going to clamp down harder. So, so this space and time, if you're feeling that pinch and that out of control and everything's happening to you and it's painful as hell, I would invite you to follow that trail of pain by any degree to say,
Yeah.
why does this hurt so bad? And they're like, I don't want to surrender. I don't want to let go. I don't want to trust. Well, then it's going to be pretty hard for you. And that's unfortunate. And it's not for me to make you feel better. It's got to be something from yourself.
Yeah, I think there's been something that just clicked with me, and I think about it from like a bird's eye view. And when you think about people, in a corporate office or like, just kind of marching to this monotonous, droning, loud beat, and people don't realize that they're kind of being deafened by it. And at some point, I just said, I was not born to live this way. I was born to be creative and compassionate and in community with other people and unapologetically myself. When I first started working with my coach, one of the first things that I really remember being the oh my God, this is something different than I've done before was when I started working on my intuition. Like, what is intuition? How do I listen to it more? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What foods am I eating? What do I get the tinglies in my back? Like, I now, come to recognize when I'm having an intuitive hit where I don't know why I'm saying it, but for the love of God, I'm gonna say it. And if it lands like a turd, oh well. But it usually doesn't. It comes out and you're like, wow, that was like unadulterated truth that came
Yeah.
from a really genuine, kind, loving place. And when you hear it, when you feel it, when you see it, when you're with it, there's no mistaking it. And that is how I was meant to live. And I couldn't do that when I was working in corporate because there's someone that's like, don't say this, don't say that. They'll react this way. This could land that. I don't care.
Mm-mm. Same. And that's actually the ask of all of us right now is by any degree is to say the thing, do the thing, experience the thing, feel the feel. Stop masking if you can by any degree. And it's not easy work, I would say, but it's hella worth it. And I'm the same way. Like, I don't even care if anything lands as turds. I'm like, cool. Then I just put a turd out and it's fine. So it's a beautiful place to be. It's a beautiful place to be when you're living authentically. Also, I recognize not everyone feels safe in that place to do so, and it's your own pathway. That's what's actually the most exquisite is that there's not one soul on this plane that can do what you do, how you do it. So honor that in yourself first. And then if you want to or feel that you need to move, okay, get some allies to your point, get the community, understand how you want that to work for yourself and just start moving toward that by any means. Emily, so what's coming up for you? What's exciting? What moves are you excited to be making in Squirrel Space or otherwise? Like what's up on deck?
Yeah, what I'm really excited about is we're finally applying to be your 501c3, and it is a scary journey to be a nonprofit in a time like this. And the big move that I'm making is not only am I launching Squirrel Space, what we're trying to do, is build a real community. And at this time, because fundraising and grants are pretty hard to come by, what I decided to do in the big move I'm making is I'm also starting a venture fund. And the venture fund is really designed for people who come from marginalized communities that are trying to design and launch products for their community, taking that lived experience. And a lot of that is supposed to help solve problems that have been here for a
Mhm.
long time that just have never had enough incentive, i.e., money, to attract it to the right space. And ADHD has now been diagnosed not correctly, but when I was diagnosed, it was during the time when a lot of people were starting to be diagnosed. And now, something like 25 years later, there's still a stigma around mental health. There's still a stigma around neurodiversity. And it tells me that we're not putting the right resources in the right place. And so the big moves that I'm making is, I'm taking about a third of my retirement savings to start a venture fund. It's a very small one. I'm not rich. I never will be, and I don't want to be, frankly. Like the idea of being a millionaire is not appealing to me. It's not happening. I'm not going to let it happen. What I want to do is put that into the universe. And that's what's really letting us design, tech and starting to actually design products that are meant for the neurodivergent community, that are meant for, the females, like menopausal care, and that are meant for, cultural or ethnic minorities, people that have not gotten, a fair shake and not gotten the same opportunity. And by combining different ways to pull people into this community. So if you got money, great, invest. If you got money, great, donate. If you don't, volunteer. If you don't, be part of the community. But I'm standing up these structures, and you had said structure earlier, which is, it is kind of masculine energy. And that's the big thing I'm putting out there is I am now putting out a structure, in a way to invest, to donate, to give, and to be a community, and doing venture capital with a nonprofit. These two things are not by design meant to be together. And I'm learning quickly how complex it is to try to create like three companies at the same time. But this is the big move, is really making sure that I'm opening up every channel possible to get the flow of capital and to get the flow of energy and to get the support to Squirrel Space, to my venture studio, to anyone who really is a unicorn but hasn't been supported and has been told that they're just a common horse. You're not a mule, you're a unicorn, you're special. Or you're a squirrel, but you're really a unicorn. I will find you and you will find me. And that's the big move, is let's bring nonprofit and venture capital together. Let's start changing and driving where we want, the energy to go. And it does require being pretty bold and courageous, because like Social Security is going to be gone by the time I want to retire anyways. And so what am I saving for? And so this is a bold move for me, right? Like, I don't know if I'm going to have a 401k again, right? Like, I'm not in corporate anymore. And not only I'm not making an income, and I'm taking my retirement savings, and it's because of this nuts belief that there is kindness out there and that someone has to make the first move and be the light, for people to follow and be like, I want to do that too. I want to invest in something that's going to return social good. I want to accept a lower rate of return, knowing that where I put my money matters and that I'm investing in someone that is investing back in the community. And I think that, I think it's going to change people's perspectives. And I think it is going to speak very powerfully to the people that are looking for a cause. So many people go through things without that purpose. And when you find someone that's got that purpose, it speaks. And that's the move that I'm making, is putting out the energy and the capital, and the opportunities, and giving something for people to come along with, giving people hope. And that's the bold move. This is a tough time to have hope in,
but you're creating the hope. That's the whole vibe right now. So we get to create all of this, which is the how, quote unquote, we get through this wild time in space. Real quickly, as we start to wind down, I want to go to a post that you made and I want to hear more. You also have a big lawsuit up. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So you made a post recently on LinkedIn about your social activism and that you're legally challenging the SEC on income and wealth restrictions on venture capital fundraising and flow of capital. Wow, how's that going and what's up?
It's good. This was something that, gosh, I don't think I've been that angry in a long time. When I was investing or trying to invest in a venture capital fund, healthcare shares and company, and I had great conversations with the CEO. And when I went to commit my funds, I found out about the accredited investor law, which it's basically based on wealth and income. And when you look at the number and percent of founders who are Black or women or disabled, we have major troubles getting funding, because think about our networks, think about where we grew up, think about the barriers that we overcome, only to be told by the SEC that I can't invest in causes that directly benefit from me. And so we have an incentive problem of when the people who could design for their communities are being discriminated against and not allowed to invest their money in early stage companies or in people who are doing something new and different. And instead, we either get people that are in it for the money, they know technology, they create, but they have access to capital. And, it's a lot of lipstick on a pig thing is, I know how venture capital works. It's all about generating revenue, ignoring your costs and exiting before anybody can catch you. And when I found out, that I couldn't invest in something that I care very dearly about, which is healthcare. And, you kind of understand why, which is now I've been hospitalized twice and seen the underbelly and worked in very closely in healthcare to see this is a broken industry. And instead of running away, I turned and faced the beast and said, I'm changing you, I'm transforming you. And I could not believe that the SEC has these laws that are based on decisions that I have made intentionally to not take more than I need. I leave money on the table all the time because I'm not a money motivated person. And yes, I'm in venture capital because I respect that other people do have different attitudes about money than I do. And that's okay. I know what I need, and money doesn't drive my happiness. But when I found out, the historical origins of the SEC's laws about consumer protectionism, which sounds well intended. And I'm sure there were a lot of use cases where people were being taken advantage of. But there's also something about trying to protect people from themselves, because I could go out and buy $25,000 worth of alcohol. How much do wedding dresses cost, and do you ever wear them again? No. I got mine stained and I still haven't washed the stain out, and that was 11 years ago. And to not be able to use my good judgment to support things that I desperately believe in was, I think, the most insulted I've ever been. And that did not take me a lot of convincing to sue the SEC because it's a ridiculous law. And what it reminds me of, and I started doing a lot of research on this because this is sort of the way that my brain works, is I started trying to look for other laws that kind of have this infantilism in there, or this sort of guise of consumer protection. And what's interesting and what I found that sort of relates to this crazy time in our country is what I found is that there's the forced sterilization was legal in the United States, and it ended way later than you want to know. I mean, we made it legally possible because there was a Supreme Court case that allowed it. And guess what? That has not been overturned. And when the rationale came out, it was because Black women were seen as mental defects, or people that were different, labeled as mental defects, and then were forcibly sterilized because they couldn't make decisions for themselves. And when you think about the effect that has, obviously they're removing people from the gene pool. That's evil. That's wrong. In venture capital, when you cut off the flow of capital from communities that need it by founders who are from those communities, you remove the solution from the people it's designed for, and you stop the flow of capital. You create perverse incentives. And that's how you get things like the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. You get things that are incredibly wrong, that come from healthcare, that come in the name of public benefit. But when they don't come from that community, it should make you suspicious. And so my post, and sort of my decision to kind of brand myself as a social justice advocate started when I agreed to that lawsuit, because I'm not really actually a litigious person at all. And I've turned away from a lot of lawsuits that I probably should have frankly filed. But this one I wanted to stand on because it really represents something much bigger than me. A lot of the other lawsuits before, people would try to say, oh, well, you'd be doing XYZ for other people. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I know my own motivations, and I think I was just kind of pissed. But I could tell my motivations were really different, and it's wanting to take a stand against a really unjust law and giving myself the opportunity, and every other person that wants to invest or support somebody because they relate to that cause. My hope is that it just creates more possibility for true innovation for the causes and the people and the communities that so desperately need it. And so I am really proud of what I'm doing. And I don't think it's going to stop. Like, I don't think this is a stop of my social justice journey.
That's beautiful. Sacred rage. It's sacred rage. So I can't wait to watch the unfolding of the suit. Emily, as we start to wrap up, where can we find you and support your work?
Yeah, you can find me a lot on LinkedIn. You can find me in the Portland community, and you can certainly find me on the Squirrel Space community. I like to keep a pretty open calendar, and so come and meet with me. You can email me. I'll give my cell phone. I'm a very open person. So follow me on social media. You can reach out to me one-on-one. I'm pretty easy to get coffee with as well. And I travel quite a bit. So don't be shy and just send me a message and if I'm in the same city, let's meet up. And otherwise, let's have a virtual coffee chat. So yeah, I try to stay pretty active and try to be really responsive to people on social media, whether or not you're looking to have a conversation, you want to ask about what I'm doing, I'm open to it.
I'm bummed we missed each other in Chicago.
No.
Next time. Closing remarks as we wrap up.
I think it's just gratitude. There's so many people who want to help, who want to support, and sometimes it's putting the call for help or the call for partnership out there. And so I think that's the closing remarks is don't ever tell yourself you don't deserve something you want. When you want something, don't go it alone. Ask for help. You'd be surprised that when you kind of take that leap of faith, there's going to be people to catch you. And I would just express the gratitude for many of the people that have sent me very caring messages, who remind me that it's okay to recover slowly, and who say that what we're building in Squirrel Space is truly special and unique. And I'm just so grateful for all of the support I've had along the way.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.